Well, thank you so much, Minister Zafrul, for joining us today. So you're accompanying Prime Minister Anwar to visit China this time, which is also the third time to visit China in 2 years. So firstly, could you tell us what is your main goal on this trip?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This trip, I'm accompanying our Prime Minister, Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim. We are here for various reasons. One of the reasons we are here is to attend the Expo, the International Import Expo, China International Import Expo, which is a major event for Malaysia. We have been participating in this event for the last 7 years, ever since its inception. And this year we have been given the honor to be a guest of honor. So our Prime Minister came to deliver a speech. And at the same time, we were also given the opportunity to have a bilateral meeting with Premier Lee, which we just had last night, and followed by a dinner. And tomorrow we'll be going to Beijing in meeting with President Xi. And at the same time, the other reason why we're here is to also meet a few companies and to look at potential exports of Malaysian companies to China, and also potential investments of Chinese companies to Malaysia. And finally, I think we're also here to follow up on the various initiatives that we have announced. We want to follow up with the various government agencies, ministries, as well as companies, and to see the progress of the initiative that we have announced during our last 2 visits.
The bilateral trade between Malaysia and China has reached $190 billion. And the two sides agreed to further expand the scale of trade. So is there a specific goal that the two sides are trying to reach?
Yes, well, the first 9 months of this year, it's continued to increase. We've posted an increase of around 9% growth in terms of trade. We are looking at areas not just on business to business, people to people. We look at tourism, for example.
Yeah.
Tourist arrivals from China into Malaysia have increased by 160% in the first 8 months of the year, and that's around 2.8 million tourists from China into Malaysia. And at the same time, I think what we're looking at is to ensure that we continue this cooperation. And yesterday, both Premier Lee and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim witnessed the exchanging of documents, which is the BRI Cooperation Plan. So the Belt and Road Initiative Cooperation Plan, which was signed by both governments to show what are the areas that we can work on. Some of the areas that we're looking to work closer, one is on the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there are very various major infrastructure projects that is done in Malaysia together with Chinese companies, ECRL for example, but we are looking at other areas, and the other cooperation is on finance, on technology, on trade and investment, of course, on education. So there are various verticals or various areas where we would like to see deeper collaboration. So this is a plan to see how we can execute it well.
And you just talk about infrastructure and green economy and digital. Maybe could you share a little more details about those specific plans? What do you have in mind? And there are still major projects going on?
Yeah, one of the things that Malaysia is focusing on is our industrial master plan. And when it comes to our industrial master plan, we also link it very closely to meeting the sustainability standards. At the same time, we have the energy transition roadmap. So all this requires technology. We need, in terms of the right kind of technology to transition towards the green economy. And China has that expertise. Of course, China is well known for its strength in solar, for example, and now, of course, its strength in other areas as well, especially battery, EV, and solar and EV now complement each other because you need the storage for power, for example. So we are seeing a lot of companies from China who are interested to help us move towards cleaner energy, and it is in line with our net zero target. Malaysia has a net zero target to achieve net zero by the year 2050. And already we have big battery companies also from China, for example, EVE and a few others who are already in Malaysia. And at the same time, Malaysia is a very strong semiconductor hub. You know, our E&E industry is very matured. It has been in existence for over 50 years, and we are a major exporter of E&E. In fact, the largest sector that exports to China is about 38% of our exports is from the E&E sector. So that shows how important it is, but it also shows we have competitive advantage in this area, and with the support of companies with the advanced technology that China has, right, that would be good. The other one, and I talk about digital economy, for example. So digital economy, even in this visit, we will be visiting Huawei, but at the same time, we have also seen many companies from China, be it in the data centers, right? There are strong presence from companies from China in Malaysia to support the digital infrastructure, such as data center, and at the same time on application of software, solutions provider, service provider on IT. So all these are working closely with Malaysian companies, of course. And we can see the positive spillover of this as well, coming from various technologies companies from China.
Your ministry has set a target to attract electrical vehicles. Considering the capacity of China, what kind of role could China play in it?
Yeah, well, if you see Malaysia today, we have seen a dramatic increase in the usage of EV. This is, of course, driven by government policy. Right today, you don't tax. There's no tax on EV cars, or any form of taxation. So it is priced competitively compared to ICE cars. At the same time, we are giving a lot of tax incentive for EV chargers. So there's EV chargers in Malaysia now. The ratio is 1:9. So and it's going to continue to go down as we improve on the availability of EV charging stations. And all these technologies are also in the cooperation of other companies, and Chinese companies are also very instrumental in assisting us rolling out the EV charging station, for example, together with our Malaysian companies. And at the same time, when you look at EV cars on the road today in Malaysia, you will see many Chinese EV cars as well. And what we are doing today is to ensure that we also see the spillover to the Malaysian economy. Therefore, what we're doing is we are encouraging companies that are selling EV cars to build those EV cars in Malaysia, especially when I said earlier that we are quite established in the E&E sector, also in the semiconductor. So all these EV cars requires a lot of power chips. They need the chips in the cars compared to ICE cars. So they can be closer to the supply chain because most of the chips for cars are produced in Malaysia. So we have managed to attract 2 or 3 EV companies into Malaysia to build here. In fact, yesterday we had a meeting with the chairman of Geely, the Prime Minister, together with the Prime Minister, to talk about building up the capacity of EV in Malaysia, in the EV ecosystem, and for Geely to also start producing EV cars in Malaysia. And of course, we have other companies already established in Malaysia from China. So this will help because it will help us to move towards our net zero target as well. But what's important is also we want to make sure that EV cars are affordable, right? So this is where Chinese technologies and the scale in the industry that's already in existence today in China can help us ensure that EV cars becomes accessible to all markets.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about the spillover effect and the production localization in Malaysia. And we know some countries even further, they put tariff barriers to EV cars. And so what do you think of this whole debate of overcapacity?
Well, I think, you have 2 different perspectives, obviously. For us in Malaysia, we really believe the importance of multilateral understanding on the objective of multilateral agreements, right? That's why we have multilateral organizations like WTO to ensure that free trade and fair trade is available, is definitely focused on in economies. Especially in countries like Malaysia, where we are very much an open economy. Our trade to GDP is about 130%. We're a small economy as well at the same time. So we need to ensure that there is fair play, there's equitable play in a way, in terms of trade and investments into the global arena. For me, there are many forms of tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. Sometimes they use standards on sustainability or ESG as a pretext of meeting those standards, but actually some may argue
actual trade barrier.
It's actually a non-tariff trade barrier because they feel that I'm not able to compete, so they put other standards. So similarly for tariff barrier, so if that's the reason, then I think we need to ensure that the right forum is given for us to express our grievances, right, our concerns, right? And I think WTO is the right platform for that. But in some cases, even in Malaysia, we do look at it constructively, objectively. So if it does injure an industry unfairly, so there is a reason and a justifiable reason, then we should. But at the same time, I think more often than not, what we are seeing is this is a form of protectionism, right? Because who will, in the end, suffer? It will be the consumers, right? For example, if the tariff on solars, right? So we want to meet net zero target. So does the world, right? But if the world have to pay more for solar panels, for example, that means the cost of renewable energy, cost of green energy will be more expensive. And who will pay for this at the end of the day is the people. So I think we need to be objective and also be fair in our judgment. But at the same time, we shouldn't weaponize the economy for certain other objectives.
And on semiconductors, we know Malaysia is the 6th biggest exporter in the world. But in the meantime, the US and China and also other big countries are also competing in exactly this area. So what do you think of those kind of competition, and what do you think that China and Malaysia could do in supply chain cooperation, including semiconductors?
Yes, I think supply chain cooperation is very important. I begin to realize how important this is, and I think the world begin to realize how important it is actually during COVID, right? During COVID-19, when there were lockdowns in many countries, in many industries, suddenly you realize that how integrated and how deeply connected the world is when it comes to producing simple things like even cars or handphones. So when the world shuts down, even one economy cannot function to produce a simple product, right? And so at the same time, now with geopolitics and the energy prices going up in certain areas, in certain geographies because of the wars, trade tensions between, especially in this case, China and US, driving costs up with tariffs, etc. We are seeing companies, at the end of the day, companies will look at areas where they can make money, right? Because they want to serve the customers at the lowest price, because that's how they make their business viable. So we are seeing a lot of realignment of the supply chain. They redesign their supply chain. They want to make sure that their supply chain is more resilient and at the same time more secure, not just cheap, but also resilient and secure. And therefore, we are seeing Malaysia, especially ASEAN, as a neutral zone. We are all non-aligned in our approach towards the economies and trade and investment. We see many more companies moving in this area, and Malaysia has been a net beneficiary of the investments coming in, especially in semiconductor, because this has been an area where in today's world, everyone needs a semiconductor. The chip component is available, need everywhere, from energy all the way to your daily use, from your kettle to everything. So it's important that we ensure that that the supply chain security is there. For us, we are ready to support that, and we are fortunate, like I said, we have been in this space for the last 50 years, so we have the ecosystem already in place, already in Malaysia, infrastructure, the talent, etc., etc. So I think we should leverage of this and work closely with companies, and there are many companies from the United States, from Europe, and from China who have already been in Malaysia for the last 50 years together with us in this space. So we want to build on that, and we see more growth in this area, especially with our collaboration with China. In fact, yesterday we met an IC design company from China, and they are very keen to explore building their factories in Malaysia because of the ecosystem that's already built there and availability of a large pool of talent in this area.
But you said Malaysia has taken a neutral stand on this, but will there be a day that national security is more important for Malaysia?
No, I think national security means that we need to be neutral because we are a small country. We participate in all forums. We are very happy that we have been accepted, for example, to be a partner in BRICS, right? At the same time, next week we will be going to APEC. Yeah. We are also a member of CPTPP. We are, of course, a member of ASEAN. We are a member of RCEP. We have over 16 FTAs, both bilateral and multilateral FTAs that we have signed with various groupings in various countries, and we are signing more. In fact, we're just going to complete one with Middle East country, UAE, by end of this year. So for Malaysia, I think it is in our interest to be independent. Therefore, we need to be neutral. And this is why I think our strength is. I think the stability of the region is because of its position when it comes to neutrality.
We know there has been a dispute over South China Sea between China, Malaysia, and China with other ASEAN countries. But with Malaysia, we've noticed that friendly has always been the basic tone, and the two sides are trying to show a positive trend in relations. So in your view, how did the two countries manage to do that?
Well, in my view, I think what's important in any relationship, right, even in personal relationship for that matter, it's important that we resolve it in private, right? We don't have to use gramophone diplomacy, right? What we can do is that if we don't agree, we shouldn't get third party involved. For example, you mentioned on the issue of South China Sea. I think it's important that we continue to engage rather than disengage or making views publicly, right? You have many forums. Our Prime Minister have many forums with the Premier Li as well as the President Xi to discuss this. So I think those are the areas and channels where this discussion can be done. I think this is why I think mature relationship in this case between the last 50 years between Malaysia and China has helped us navigate some of the sensitive issues.
And also, we're very looking forward to the next year, Malaysia's rotating chairmanship of ASEAN. Could you elaborate what kind of vision does Malaysia have for China-ASEAN relations?
Yes. Well, for China-ASEAN relationship, we are very optimistic. We are going to host China twice. One, we have the ASEAN GCC China meeting that's in May, and another one when we have the ASEAN Summit again with partners, including China, in November. So this is very important for us to showcase ASEAN and, of course, to showcase Malaysia as well. And this is an opportunity for us to strengthen ASEAN's relationship with China and also bring other parties into the fold, right? In this case, GCC as well. This is the first time that we're having ASEAN GCC China Summit, right? And I think what's important is that we continue to collaborate and cooperate in areas where we can strengthen our economies, because what we want to see at the end of the day when we lead ASEAN, and that's the theme for ASEAN is for Malaysia when it's chair, is to ensure that the growth that we achieve in ASEAN is a growth that is sustainable, growth that's inclusive, growth that's equitable, growth that is resilient. So, ASEAN is it's a major economic bloc today. It's the 5th largest economic bloc in the world. I think GDP around $3.8 trillion US, population about 680 million people, growing at 4 to 5%. If it continues to grow at 4 to 5%, it will be the 4th largest economic bloc in the world. And if you look at the population I mentioned just now, 680 million people, half of them are actually under the age of 30. So the demographic is also working well, showing that there's a lot of opportunities for ASEAN today, and if we can work and cooperate with other regions, especially China, is also growing fast, we're always going to benefit the region.
And there's a new driver, the upgrade of FTA.
Yes.
So if the negotiations went well, what kind of new opportunities could this bring to China ASEAN countries?
Well, of course, the upgrade will mean that we are going to look at new areas. Two areas that we are looking at is one is digital area, which I mentioned, and how we're going to improve on that. And the other one is on digital and green investment. So, and various other lines that we are going to look at. So, I think by November next year, you will have to wait for the details. But we are optimistic because we have put this as one of our economic deliverables during our chairmanship of ASEAN.
Well, that's all for our questions. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your thoughts and views.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.